Asher's consciousness returned slowly, like wading through crystallized honey. His neural implants buzzed with alarm signals, but his body refused to respond. Every muscle felt locked in permafrost, his limbs heavy as neutron-star matter. The climate controls in his hibernation pod had failed. That much was obvious from the frost coating his eyelashes. But that wasn't what paralyzed him with fear. Something warm rested against his chest, something that shouldn't be there, something that purred with a frequency that made his bones vibrate. Through half-frozen eyelids, Asher glimpsed iridescent scales that shifted between violet and deep crimson. The creature was massive, icily, 3 meters from crown to tail tip, yet somehow curled into an impossibly compact form within his arms. 6 crystalline eyes, each the size of his fist, remained closed in what appeared to be peaceful slumber. Delicate antennae twitched occasionally near his collarbone, tasting his fear-laced pheromones. The Zizoric's queen. There was no mistaking her. Elizabeth's warnings from 6 months ago echoed in his mind. The queens don't just choose mates, Asher, they choose sanctuaries. If one decides you're safe, you become hers, forever. His crewmate had spent years studying the Zorics before their diplomatic mission. She'd catalogued their biology, their culture, their peculiar concept of intimacy. The human delegation had dismissed most of her findings as xenobiological. Curiosity is interesting, but irrelevant to trade negotiations. Now, Asher understood how catastrophically wrong they'd been. The queen shifted, pressing closer against him. Her scales were surprisingly warm, radiating heat that fought against the hibernation pod's malfunction. Perhaps she was the only reason he hadn't frozen to death. The irony wasn't lost on him, saved by the very thing that terrified him. He tried moving his fingers. They twitched infinitesimally. Progress. But any significant movement might wake her, and Asher had no idea what protocol demanded when an alien monarch decided your embrace was her throne. The ship's intercom crackled to life, Elizabeth's voice cutting through the silence. Asher, your pod's showing critical malfunctions. I'm coming too. The transmission died abruptly. Asher's heart hammered so violently he was certain the queen could hear it. She stirred, one crystalline eye opening to reveal swirling galaxies of bioluminescence within. The eye fixed on him, studied him, judged him. Then she spoke, not with words, but with direct neural contact that bypassed language entirely. Images flooded Asher's consciousness, her hive, shattered by civil war, her children, scattered across hostile territories, her exhaustion, bone-deep and crushing, from cycles of fighting to protect what remained of her dynasty. And then, impossibly, a memory of him. 3 weeks ago, during the banquet, he'd noticed a Zurik's attendant struggling with human gravity, about to drop an ornamental crystal that held cultural significance. Without thinking, Asher had caught it, returned it with a respectful bow, and offered his arm to help the attendant reach a lower gravity zone. Such a small gesture, meaningless, he'd thought, but the queen had been watching, and in that moment, she'd seen something her species valued above all else. Instinctive protection offered without expectation of reward. In Zarok's culture, such individuals were sacred Shava, they called them. Sanctuary-souls. The door to the hibernation bay exploded inward. Elizabeth stood in the threshold, plasma rifle raised, her expression shifting from combative to absolutely stunned in a microsecond. "Don't move," she whispered, though whether she was talking to Asher or herself was unclear. The queen's other 5 eyes opened, all focusing on the new arrival. Asher felt tension coil through her serpentine body, her scales shifting to a warning crimson. Her species had been hunted to near extinction by traders seeking their crystalline organs. Trust did not come easily. "Elizabeth," Asher managed, his voice hoarse from cold and fear. "Lower the weapon. Are you insane? That's a Zorik's queen. She could have killed me 100 times over." Asher found his voice growing stronger, even as the queen's mental presence pressed more firmly against his consciousness. He was beginning to understand her now, to feel the edges of her desperate need for safety. "She's not a threat. She's asking for asylum." Elizabeth's rifle lowered slightly, her xenobiological training ward with years of military conditioning. The queens don't ask for anything, they take, not this one. Asher finally managed to move his hand, placing it gently on the queen's scaled head. She leaned into the touch, that bone vibrating, intensifying. "She's different. The war destroyed everything she knew. She needs," he paused, finding the right words. "She needs someone who'll protect her without trying to own her." Understanding dawned in Elizabeth's eyes. She'd written 17 papers on Zarek's psychology, had argued until she was hoarse that they weren't the monsters human propaganda portrayed, and now, faced with living proof, she had to choose: trust her research or trust her fear. The rifle clattered to the floor. "Okay," Elizabeth breathed, moving slowly into the room with palms raised. "Okay, Your Majesty. We'll figure this out." She glanced at Asher, a wry smile tugging at her lips despite the insanity of their situation. "Though you realize this makes us responsible for intergalactic diplomacy now. If word gets out that we're harboring a Zarek's queen, let them come," Asher said, and was surprised to find he meant it. The queen's presence in his mind showed him her worth not as a commodity or a threat, but as a being who'd chosen vulnerability over violence. That deserved protection. Humans are good at one thing above all else: we're stubborn as hell when we decide something's worth fighting for. The queen's purr deepened, resonating with what could only be described as approval. Her scales shifted to a deep, peaceful blue, the color of trust. Elizabeth's research had noted, rarely seen outside familial bonds. As feeling gradually returned to Asher's limbs and Elizabeth worked to repair the hibernation pod's climate controls, he realized something profound. Humanity's place in the galaxy wouldn't be defined by their weapons or their technology. It would be defined by moments like this, when a human looked at something alien and afraid and said simply, "You're safe here." The Zarek's queen had chosen her sanctuary well, and perhaps, in choosing them, she'd given humanity something equally precious: a chance to prove they were worthy of the stars they so desperately wanted to claim.